with a good person.
And we are live. Hello, everybody. I am really excited to finally get to talk to Luke from Reynolds Reviews. He is somebody that I've been aware of for, I feel like it's been at least 2 years now, but I could have that wrong. How long have you been on YouTube, sir?
Just under 2 years. So February 19.
That's right. So I knew I was in that ballpark. I knew your name
February
had cropped
20,
up.
Sorry. February 20.
Your name had cropped up somewhere within that period, and I started to get to know you and your work. But I certainly wanted to have you on the show and just get a chance to sit down and talk to you. I say the show. Like this is a sub series. We don't have like a show, but I wanted to get you on the channel and just interview you, talk to you for a little bit, find out about your background in all this crazy stuff that we do. And also as a big part of it, just let everybody know who may not be aware that there's a channel called Reynolds Reviews that's about both vintage and modern toys of retro properties, especially Star Wars. So I'm going to take the Wayback Machine to the beginning of Luke's childhood, not your childhood on Tatooine, but the one before that, the one where you were a kid in England, ostensibly, and you were. What's your first memory of toys? Like when you're getting into toys, do you remember the first kind of toys you were into?
You know, I guess I'd be lying if I said I remember the first kind of toys I was into. I suppose I would have to say Star Wars was when I remember noticing toys. I watched Return of the Jedi when I was six, almost 7, maybe. That is my first conscious memory when I think about toys, playing with Star Wars toys. But there's so many others in there as well. I have very vivid memories of Transformers, especially watching the movie with my grandparents and my brother. We then went straight to our local Woolworths and bought Galvatron and Ultra Magnus, I believe it was.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the memories that I have are quite scattered, but the ones that I do remember are also quite specific. A big memory of mine, and I've mentioned this on a previous video, is my parents' old home had a hallway quite literally from the front to the back of the house. It stretched the whole way down the centre of the house. And I often used to charge back and forth with Thunderhawk and Switchblade. And I often used to charge down. So they're the kind of memories I instantly remember. So Mask, Transformers, Star Wars. Thundercats crept in there at one point, although strangely, I remember having them as a child, but no real desire to collect them as an adult now. I don't know why that is.
Right.
But they're probably they're very scattered, but they're probably my most vivid memories. Yes.
That's very
nice.
I have my beef with Thundercats as well, especially the toys. But I sympathize, sir. I do. Before I get on to my next question real quick, I just want to recognize a few people. Master Son 42, thank you for the nice super chat. He says, I better be first or I trash everything I can afford, which is only my reputation. Afternoon, guys. Afternoon to you too, sir. Great to have you here. And then Nick sends a £2 super chat. He says, because Luke is the man and Jax thinks he is ace.
Oh, give over, Nick. I hope Jax is watching. Hi, Jax.
So you're playing with these toys. It seems like from the spread you've given, Star Wars, Transformers, Mask, you're talking like maybe an 84 to 86 time frame, what with the movie and everything like that. Yeah. Was there a period where you got out of toys? Like, was there, because a lot of guys say, there was this time where I got out of toys for a while and I got rid of them. Like, do you have a story like that, or did you hold on to everything you had?
No. I mean, I don't remember there being a time where I came out from toys. I mean, we all got our games consoles, and I remember probably the first games console we got, which probably took me away from toys, was probably my Sega Master System. Now, so we got into games a little bit, but I don't remember consciously thinking I'm no longer interested in toys. The biggest problem I had was, I think my parents start to decide I wasn't any interested in toys anymore. And I think it got to the stage where I would maybe go, hey, where's my Rancor? Where's Bespin Luke? Where? And all of a sudden, they'd have been given away to friends' kids or car boots. So at no point did I ever remember thinking I'm not interested in toys anymore, but they started disappearing.
Right.
And I think that was just more because we maybe started playing computer games a little bit more, maybe got into sports as well. That I think my parents just thought, well, we just start just slipping them away here and there to that sale, give that to that friend because their kids like Star Wars, so let's give them those guys, And by then, I think it was just kind of too late, and they all disappeared. Sadly, nothing in this room is from my childhood. It's all what I've sort of picked up since I started collecting again. Right. But no, I don't ever remember a period where I wasn't interested in toys. I just remember not having them anymore.
Right. Well, fortunately, the toys are the toys, regardless of whether or not they were the ones you had when you were a kid or now. You talked earlier, I say earlier, like we've been online for about an hour. You talked a second ago about your memories of, flying the Switchblade through the house, with the Thunderhawk. How did you play and what toys appealed to you the most as far as, because like for me, I liked transforming robots, for example, until I found out how fragile they were. And then I went back to action men figures with vehicles. That became my wheelhouse at that point. There wasn't a lot of, foraying outside of that after that point. But you had a mix as well. Like, what did you gravitate toward to the most as a kid? And do you remember the way you kind of played with stuff? Like, did you set up elaborate things, or was it just kind of spur of the moment, grab and go?
No, I think I gravitated in the end more to vintage Star Wars purely because they were so robust, or they seemed like they were when I was a kid. Mask always seemed very fragile, so whenever we played with Mask, it was very much you had them in your hands and you sort of like Switchblade and Thunderhawk, you were flying with them. Right. So there was no real impact. But I gravitated more to Star Wars because the figures were extremely solid and robust. But generally, I remember that we would maybe set up scenes. We would try to reenact scenes from the movies or whatever. So, we would have a couple of speeder bikes and we would go out into the back garden and we would pull shrubs up and make it a little bit messy. Obviously, we weren't a big fan of, our mum was not a fan of it. But we would pull the shrubs up and make it look a little bit messy. Right, okay, that's Endor. Right, we'll get some speeder bikes in there. And we tried to set things up like the movies. I'll be honest, as a kid and as an adult, I wasn't huge with my imagination. I had to set up something that I knew. I couldn't think of something unique and make my own scene and make my own storyline. It had to be, this is what happens in the movie, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm very much like that as an adult. Rachel will often say to people, Luke's got no imagination, which I haven't. If you gave me a big box of Lego, huge box of Lego and said, build something, I'd just go like that. I don't know what to do. Give me some instructions and I will sit there for hours. If I know what I'm building and I know what I'm doing and there's something there to say, this is what to do. Right. Very much like a movie scene. This, I know the scene, do the scene. But other than that, I was never very good at improvisation, and I'm still aren't.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, as people have asked me over the years how I played with toys or what my memories are of playing with toys, it is a very solid mix of recreating scenes from Star Wars and then doing things that are recreation adjacent. So, for example, if it was Jabba the Hutt involved, it involved one of the Jedi heroes being captured and the rest of them having to save that person. If it wasn't a movie thing, sometimes I recreated one of those kids' storybook stories from back then, like the Maverick Moon or whatever it was, where I would just take my toys, look at the pictures inside this non-canon, we say that now, but it wasn't a thing then, just this non-canon Star Wars story, and I'd recreate that. Now, other times it would just be, I drop the duck blanket, see what kind of mountain appears, and just do random actionness. But that was story-less. There wasn't a lot of creativity there, just a lot of, hunt and seek kind of stuff. There's stormtroopers on this side, they're good guys on this side. Let's see who can go pew 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 and what happens. So don't feel too bad about that.
No.
Yeah. Now I gotta see what your what your experience was, because these are where the stories get unique, I find, for everybody in our generation. What was it, and when did you decide, I'm going to start recollecting these and trying to find them again?
That's quite an easy one. It was around 10 years ago.
Oh wow!
I had to have significant time off work due to an operation that I needed to have. So I was recovering at home. Myself and Rachel had kind of just started seeing each other properly, if you like. And she was very, very kind to buy me a birthday present, because it was sort of my birthday whilst I was recovering. And I was in an apartment. I was living by myself at this point. And she bought me, I always want to say it's a Force FX lightsaber, but it's not, I believe. It wasn't one of the Master Replica ones. It was a slightly smaller Jedi Luke lightsaber, but it lit up, and it made the noises and it, the clash sounds. But it was like a mid-size one.
Yep. And
it was the greatest thing ever. This is fantastic. But straight away, it was one of them moments where I had two thoughts instantly when I opened it. One, I need to now look at more lightsabers, and two, I actually live alone. I can have what I want here. I can put out what I want. I don't have anyone else to worry about. If I want to cover this place in Star Wars wallpaper, I can do that. So I basically started looking for more lightsabers, then I picked up a Luke Jedi Master Replica. Then I picked up an Anakin one. I picked up an Empire Luke one. That led to, I wonder if you can get any 1.1 scale helmets. That led to a Stormtrooper helmet, which led to looking for Stormtrooper armor, which led to then looking for figures. And before I knew it, I was collecting. And it kind of just went from there. And it's just grown and grown and grown until I'm sat in a room with everything. But I don't think it was ever really meant to be this. It was just, that's what kicked it off. So I guess what I'm saying, Rachel's responsible. If she's listening.
Now, you said I want to go look at my other lightsabers when she bought you that. That implies that you had other lightsabers already.
Oh, so no, sorry. That I wanted to look for other lightsabers.
Look for other lightsabers.
Yeah, sorry.
I got you. Right. No, you're fine. Salvador, thank you for the super chat. He says, just in time for me to get ready for work. Silver lining, though, I now have something to listen to and shirk my work responsibilities.
Sounds good to me.
And then I think we have another super chat here, assuming it doesn't jump, and it jumped. So let me find it. No, that's Sal's. Hold on one second. There we go. We have someone I think we both know. Jody, he says, just cuz, €5.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jody. Great to see you here. So now you've decided, I'm going to start collecting what I want. And clearly, like so many of us, your first focus was Star Wars. You've since branched out into other things, but Star Wars was the thing you were going to get first. Did you start down a modern path or a vintage path? Which way did you pick?
No, it's vintage. Instantly, it was vintage, because the first thought was, I want to have what I had as a child. That's what I want. I won't go into the traps that I fell into very early on. I'm sure you can imagine what they were. Not that I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, I made some mistakes when I started. But no, it was only ever purely a vintage focus. Because very much now I'm quite happy. I do pick up modern stuff, as you know, but I am still very much, the biggest pull for anything for me is, that's what I saw when I was a kid. That's what was on the shelf, and that's what has the biggest impact on me now. I do enjoy, Motor Origins, you can see things like that behind me. But again, the pull to Origins is, that's kind of how I saw it. Yes, they've been slightly updated, but the packaging, it gives me that nostalgic kick. And that is generally where my sort of purchasing comes from. Right.
Yeah, you're kind of like, I didn't have an interest in Masters of the Universe classics when they were around. But when Origins came out and they were really trying to recapture yet improve the figure from before, I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. I told somebody a few months ago, they had asked me, if you hadn't had your childhood vintage Star Wars figures when you started collecting, would you have collected modern more heavily? And I'm like, well, like a lot of us, I did collect the Power of the Force 2 in the 90s and then sold them all. But if I was starting now, say within the last 10 years, if there had been a robust retro collection Star Wars line, that's what I would have collected, just like with the Origins Masters of the Universe. So if you're hearing thumping over me, it's because our cats are crazy and they're running in circles. Sorry about that, everyone. So you start collecting Star Wars vintage. What was the first figure you purchased or went after? Do you remember?
I do, and it wasn't a specific decision, a choice. It was just the first one I found at what I thought was a good price was Chewbacca. I remember that being the first one I picked up. I can only assume because it's the cheapest one I found at the time, and it was just to get me going.
Sure.
But it was, Chewbacca was the first one I got. Weirdly, I remember the second one I got. I don't know why that is. I don't remember anything after that, but I got Chewbacca and then I got Bib Fortuna.
Really?
I've no idea what I got from there, but I remember them being my first two because I stood them on my window ledge in my kitchen for weeks and weeks and weeks until I got some more. I just like the idea that they were stood there watching me while I was potting around. I don't know why that is. They could have stood anywhere, couldn't they? But they were stood on my kitchen windowsill for a long time.
Right.
So I remember them being there. So they were the first two that I got when I started recollecting. Yeah.
Now, did you find those just at collectible stores, or did you go online, or what did you
do? Both eBay.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not always a huge fan of eBay, but generally that is where I find myself for these kind of things. Vintage or selling stores, if you like, or whatever you would call them, car boot sales or flea markets or whatever they would be called. I very rarely find anything worth picking up at these places, where it seems like whenever I go on social media, so many people seem to get huge fines from selling. I never seem to have that luck.
Well, that's something that I had an experience with in the early to mid 90s, was because I just kind of never stopped, and partly because I still had my childhood stuff, but I had these gaps, and so I bought them off my friends in England in the early 90s. Like I was like, I'll give you 50p for the solid dome R2D2, and I didn't know about all the variations back then. I was just trying to buy stuff I never had. So like I was like, and I'll give you £2 for that Tauntaun, and I'll give you the Tauntaun didn't even have a saddle or anything, but I just never had a Tauntaun. And then as it got into the mid 90s and we were back in the States, I was going to comic book shops, and but I didn't have my own car, and I wasn't of driving age, so it's not like I could just go to a comic book show or a collectibles show. I had to I was beholden to whatever my parents were willing to do to take me places. And so I feel you on that.
It's great to hear you use the word quid, by the way, Michael.
Well, hey, I mean, that to me, that was how it was all described back then.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
3.5 years. You kind of, I was going through some stuff that my dad brought me a few months ago. And I think I posted some of this to Facebook, but, or maybe it was on Twitter. I can't remember, but he handed me this like pile of stuff, and it was like paperwork and things and just little cards and whatever. And I'm like, why is he handing me this? And I kept flipping through it. And then I found this sort of blue plastic sleeve, and I opened it up, and inside was my rail card from the night. Like it was like my rail card, and it was, I can't remember what the other thing was. It had my picture on it and everything, and then there was a £5 note inside, like still emergency money that was still tucked in there, because I would train it back and forth to school every day. I would go from Weybridge to Waterloo, and then take the tube. So it was this whole thing, and it was weird because it was like, oh yeah. And then I posted the photo, and some guys from your neck of the woods who I'm friends with were like, oh wow, it's actually a silver note. I'm like, huh? And they're like, oh yeah, the bill money's changed now. It's not even the same material. And I'm like, yeah, no, really? So yeah,
we use stupid plastic money now.
I didn't know that. I was kind of like, oh, because they were all like, wow, that's really nice. I'm like, huh? To me, it's just a £5 note, but to them, it's like totally different.
Oh, it's like having coiled springs in your hands now. You try and handle this money, it just bounces everywhere. And it's awful. It's awful.
Still, though, it makes for good. It'll probably make for good TikTok videos. Connor Fuller has a question. Thank you for the super chat. It's a question for Luke. Gun to the head, you can only keep one figure. What is it, and why is it Bespin Luke?
Well, it wouldn't be Bespin Luke. It would be this guy. Bespin Luke is a very, very close second. It would be this guy.
Boba Fett.
So the only reason why I have so many Bespin Lukes as opposed to Boba Fett is he's cheaper.
That's the truth.
I do. I mean, I love Bespin Luke. He is a very, very close second, but this is my favourite vintage Star Wars figure. But you can generally get 2 to 3 Bespin Lukes for one Boba Fett.
That's true.
I do pick up Boba Fett whenever I can, but as soon as I see a Bespin Luke at a decent price, I pick him up, and you just get more of them.
It was crazy, Force Awakens sent vintage prices through the roof, with Boba Fett being one of them. And then Mandalorian just sent Boba Fett through the roof. And it was just like, really? Because I remember when Boba Fett was popular, but in the secondhand market, but he was also very, very common. And now it's just like, it doesn't matter if he's common or not. He's a mint. Gerard, thank you for the super chat. He says, always a great time on this channel. Thanks so much, gents. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you
very much. And then Nick sends a £2 super chat. He says, for Michael to say, I'll give you a quid mush. And I just said, but I won't disrespect you by trying to say that with any type of accent whatsoever. Yeah. So we're in your collecting phase, and you're focusing on the figures. You've got some figures coming in. Do you happen to recall a particular figure or vehicle that you were trying to get that seemed like a Herculean effort at that point?
Are we talking now since I started collecting again in the last 10 years? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, not vehicle, but there is one piece that there's a piece that I discovered very early on when I started recollecting again that I discovered, and for the whole time from when I started collecting again it was early 2012 to when did I actually get it? I got it, in fact, I think I got it in November last year. So it took me 9 years to chase it and acquire it, which was the original 12mm away display stand. That was the hardest thing that I found to acquire. Now, obviously, I found quite a few over that sort of 9 years, but they were either completely beaten up, the backing card was completely destroyed or missing, some of the foot pegs were snapped off, or whatever it was, or they wanted too much money, or so I never got one, and then I managed to pick one up last November. Strangely, after the amount of hunting, I got it from a guy who lived 10 minutes up the road.
Really?
It was through eBay, and then when I looked at location, he was 10 minutes up the road, so I was actually able to drive to him and pick it up, which was great. So yeah, and I was quite happy with the price I paid as well. So yeah, that was the hardest thing. It took a long time, but yeah,
that always helps when the price is right. I mean, that always helps. I remember I got I finally one of the last major pieces that came into my vintage collection, which was about 5 years ago now, I think 5 or 6 years ago, was the vintage radio controlled Sandcrawler. Right. And I got it for a decent price, only to discover that it had these roof plugs that, I guess because of the molding process, they had these indentations in the roof that were then covered over by these clipped caps, these textured cap pieces. Well, one of them was missing. And I was like, what is this? Oh, no, there's something missing. It took me another 4 years to finally get a cap sold separately, a vintage original cap. Because as contrary to popular opinion, all of my actual vintage figures and vintage vehicles are all Kenner or Palitoy plastic. There are no reproduction accessories with any of those. It's only reproduction accessories with custom or custom manufactured figures like Stan Solo. But so I wasn't going to buy reproduction stuff, but it took me forever to find a seller that had that stupid cap piece so that I could complete that. Yeah, no, I got very. I mean, and again, the price. What helped with the price was obviously he was charging quite a lot for postage, and obviously when we discussed that, because I thought at one point you might as well post it. It doesn't really matter. But he wanted quite a lot for postage because obviously he said I'm going to pack it really well. It needs protecting, blah blah blah. And then when I looked at his location, he was 10 minutes up the road. So I said, look, I'll just come and get it. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it worked out really well.
What do you like more? Do you like more hunting in the wild or more just online buying with your stuff?
Well, there's not many places to hunt, I guess, where we are. There's a few car boot sales here and there, like I said, but generally you don't find anything there because most sellers now know what they've got. If they've got vintage Star Wars, they know what they've got, and it's on eBay. They're not selling it at a car boot sale because they know they can get serious money.
Sure.
So if I'm totally honest, I don't like the fact that I buy most of my things from eBay, because I do think
I have no judgment one way or the other. I was just curious.
No. But I think there's an element of enjoyment taken away from the hunt, if you like. You go onto eBay, you type it in. Generally, you find what you want. It's whether you can find it at a good price. I would much prefer to go out and find them, but we just don't, or I just don't generally find them in the wild. They're just not. They're not there. Even with modern lines, sometimes the closest store to me, which I would say is a significant store, is the local Smiths. Is about 30 miles from me, and it's stocked quite well. But even then, you walk in there and you're looking for Master of the Universe Origins. They've got 5, 6, 7 pegs of Skeletor and He-Man. That's it. And you're like, there's so many, but they're all just Skeletor and He-Man. So again, even that can be frustrating. So I would much prefer to go out and find them in the wild, because I enjoy going into a shop or going around a car boot sale and hunting for them. Unfortunately, generally the chances are I'll need to go eBay to get what I want. And which is sometimes frustrating, but it does take away an element of fun, I think.
Oh yeah. King Eric, the greatest of all, thank you for the super chat. He says, thoughts on the 4K release of the holiday special. Are you referring to the fan-made 4K release they've been talking about on YouTube? I don't know of an official 4K release. I know there's a fan who's doing a 4K restoration of some copy that was in pretty good shape or something like that, 4K upscale. So I wouldn't be opposed. What about you, Luke?
You know what? I've never actually seen the holiday special, so I don't know if everyone's going to take a sharp intake of breath when I say that.
No, I think they're going to think you're Superman and you can dodge bullets. Is what I think they're going to think.
I've never. I mean, obviously, I know that it's not meant to be particularly good, and I think I've probably avoided it on that basis. But there's part of me that thinks, I have to watch it at some point. I need to watch it. I should watch it. But it's one of those where I think, but am I going to watch it, really not enjoy it, and then just think, why did I do that?
Well, it's a commentary. The question you've just posed, I think, is a commentary on freedom, and we are free to not be involved in extracurricular things we don't want to be involved in, such as being part of the Star Wars fan community if we choose not to. However, much like in, say, a military organization where you join up and you might not like push-ups, but you got to do them. Like the sergeant tells you, give me 50 reps. You do the 50 reps. With Star Wars fandom, you sign up with the tacit understanding that you can try to avoid the holiday special, but much like the Final Destination movies, it will eventually catch you and it will eventually make you watch it. And if you're okay with that, then you're going to have a fine time.
I mean, at some point, I'm sure I will. I believe it. They're all on Disney Plus, I believe, at the moment, aren't they? So, but I know your feelings on Disney Plus, Michael. So we won't.
Right. Oh no! Like I said, I don't have any problem with other people who have Disney Plus. I personally just don't want to give Disney Plus a monthly draw. And plus, I like having something for my money. So.
Now you may enjoy this aspect of it. Then I don't actually pay for it. we piggyback off somebody else. So.
Yeah. John would like to know, obviously you don't have to tell them exactly, but John would like to know where you're hailing from.
I'm in East Yorkshire in the UK.
God's country.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Tim Hayes says, I don't understand why the holiday special gets so much hate. Well, you and Tom Burgess share a similar love of the holiday special, but it is largely considered a cringe fest of 70s variety programming. All right, so Luke, when you got far along in your Star Wars collecting, or I should say, I guess I should recast the question. How far along were you in your Star Wars collecting before you decided, you know what, I'd like to branch out into other toy lines now?
Very recent. Obviously the channel was started in February 20, and as you'll see from my branding, my logo, any music's used in the intro, the channel was only ever meant to be purely Star Wars content. This room, when we moved into this house 3 years ago, was only ever meant to be a Star Wars room. So I only just branched out into other toy lines two years ago, when I started, not even that, maybe 18 months ago, and that was purely based on being influenced by other collectors, other channels, yourself, people like Tez, Dean, all things 80s, Dean and Chris Mewer especially sort of got me looking at Mask again. People like Tez and Jody, G1 Transformers, Shabby and got me sort of looking at Master of the Universe Origins. So I've said it before that I think because I'm so not blinded, I think that's the wrong word to use, but because I was so heavily into Star Wars, I think I forgot that there were so many other lines that I loved as a kid. Until you see other people. I remember watching the USR live stream and Tez had all these Transformers behind him, and I was like, oh, Transformers are amazing, why don't I have any? So of course I started picking up a few G1 Transformers, then I saw Dean and Chris do some Mask. I need to have Mask in the collection. The problem, actually it's not a problem, I always knew I wanted to get back into Mask, if I'm honest, but I was waiting for them to be reissued,
right?
And I was convinced that would come because we've had reissue Transformers now. We've had Motu, we've had Star Wars now, Retro Collection, G.I. Joe have done it, G1 Transformers have done it. So I was convinced Mask would come. And in the end, I just lost my patience. So it was just a case of influenced by so many other channels and collectors since I started watching YouTube. And I only started watching YouTube seriously in the last 2 years with starting a channel in mind. I remember the first Saturday evening when I thought, right, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I need to start watching YouTube and seeing who's out there, what channels are out there. And the first thing I saw, it was a Saturday night, was you was doing an Empire Strikes Back live stream. I was like, okay, right, I'll check this out. Empire Strikes Back, that's my favorite movie. Let's watch this.
Right.
And that was the first thing I saw. I remember I posed 2 questions. One, which was very stupid, now I think about it at the time, which was, what was your favourite vintage Star Wars character? And you had a jumbo Luke on the desk and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So many Luke Bespins around. What's your favourite character? That was the first question, but you responded to it, which was great. And then I followed it up with, I'm thinking about starting a channel. Do you have any advice on, starting a YouTube channel? And you answered that as well. I wasn't convinced for a second my questions would get on screen, but they did, and you answered them. So from then on, I was like, right, this guy's great. He spoke to me. I'm going to watch this guy. So I was like, well, that's my question. He's answering my question. So that was it, and I've kept that in mind because your response was very much just try to make your content as best as it can be, but be honest and truthful. Don't apologize for being honest. If you don't like something, say you don't like it. If you do, then you do.
Right.
And I've remembered that. So it was, and that was kind of where it all started.
And now, because of me, you've probably got 50 dedicated trolls that just follow you around and hate you. Thank you, Mike French. Thanks for that. Good advice. Great advice.
No, so but yeah, I guess I've got on a tangent a little bit, but no, other collectors have influenced me branching outside of Star Wars because I was never meant to. But
well, we have a super chat here from Lio Convoy. He says, "Don't branch into vintage Thundercats for the sake of your wallet and your sanity."
Yeah, well, it is a toy line that I did have as a kid, but for some reason, it's just not. It's not tempting me at the moment. I'm not quite sure why that is though, because I do like it. I do like them a lot. Yeah, but I don't know why.
Ted here just says YouTube toy channels are bad for my wallet. Ted, I would like to go on record as saying that I am a YouTube toy channel that has said a bazillion times, divorce yourself from the want to have everything. In many ways, I hope that you will internalize that message because I am on your side, sir. If you want to protect your wallet, do it. Like I do not think the collect them all mentality, needs to be so pervasive. Let's see. Travels with Jason F says, thank you for the super chat. He says, question for both of you. Is there anything you would love Santa to bring you for Christmas Day when you were a kid but never got? So Luke, if Father Christmas showed up right now, poof.
Yes.
What would you want?
I can tell you, but it kind of alludes to a video that's coming.
Well, then I won't. Then you don't have to say anything. You don't have to say anything.
Okay. I'll tell you. There's 2 things. Something that I never got as a kid that I wanted, and I still don't have as an adult collector, is a G1 Jetfire.
Oh, okay.
Always wanted one, never got one, still don't have one. Do intend to get one, but very difficult to get one that isn't yellow, that has got all its pieces with it, and for what I kind of feel is a reasonable price because I'm a tight northerner. So yeah, G1 Jetfire.
Also, you have a shout out from Sean Solo 8 Reynolds Reviews,
hey,
massive
Sean.
fan and friend.
Oh, thank you, Sean.
Yeah. And to answer your question, Travels with Jason, I think it would actually be a redemption for me. I would really like to have an original 1984 Tyco Turbo Hopper in black and red again. I had one in the Christmas of '84, and I played with it a lot. I loved it, but eventually it got bashed up and wore out as an RC car. And I would love to have that original '84 black with red lettering again, Tyco Turbo Hopper. That would be like a holy grail for me. All right, and Prime Syndicate, thank you for the super chat. He says, I wish I could sell enough kidneys to buy some Nike Air Mags. The force is strong with Luke. Tell us about those Air Mags. What are those?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if I can grab one. They are plugged in. I don't know if they'll turn off.
You don't have to do that. We can see them real well. Okay, here, I'll tell you what. I'll even blow this up, and that way we can see them better. And I'll pull this down. All right. So tell us about these shoes.
The story is, it's quite an interesting one, actually. I actually got these through a friend of a friend of a friend. It was quite literally maybe a 4-tier friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. Because I'm also a big Back to the Future fan. And a friend of mine texted me one day. It was about 7 or 8 years ago now, and basically said, I know somebody who knows somebody who has a pair of Nike Air Mags. Are you interested? Well, yeah, certainly am. So they sent a message to, we agreed on a price, and I thought that everything was fine. I thought they were going to post them. And then I got a message from, again, the same friend saying they don't want to post them because, they could go missing or they could get damaged or whatever. They're very expensive. But they're willing to meet you. They're coming to your neck of the woods next weekend. They're willing to meet you at a service station on the M62. So I was like, right, you want me to meet a guy who I've never met, who I don't know, at the side of a road at a service station?
Sounds totally legit.
Yeah, now, so all of a sudden the decision became very, how much do I want these?
Right.
Am I willing to risk my life to potentially be bundled in the back of a car? And how badly do I want these? Hence the behind me, because the decision was I want them enough to risk my life to go get them. So luckily I met it was perfectly legitimate. I met this guy who was fine, and we did a deal. But that is quite literally how I came into the possession. That they weren't to find on eBay, they weren't to find at a store, they weren't to find at a shop. It came from a text message from a friend who knew someone who knew someone who knew someone. And then I met the guy at the side of the road and bought them.
Nice.
that is quite literally how I got them.
That's a great story. I mean, I have one kind of like that. I think I've told before where I went out with my friend Joe to this guy. The guy said, I've got G.I. Joe parts. And the short version is that we drove in the middle of the night in a rainstorm to the address, and it was like a storage facility, and we drove through the gate, and there was this guy in the pouring rain standing under the one light that was outside the entrance to going into the interior of the storage unit. And he was this short guy. He looked like he was of Asian descent, little guy. He was dressed like Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park. He was just black button down shirt, black pants, leather belt, and he was standing there. And as we drove in, all we saw was the smoke from his cigarette going up into the lamp, And Joe looked over at me and he goes, "Have you just made a deal with the Yakuza?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And so he walks up to the window, and I roll it down, and he's like, "Michael French?" And I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Come with me." And I'm like, "Okay, maybe this is the Yakuza." So we go in and we go up the thing, and he takes me into this. I just hear this din of noise as we go down these hallways. And we come to this interior storage unit. The doors open, the big swing out doors open. And inside, it is a G.I. Joe chop shop. It is like rows and rows of vehicle shells, all organized from earliest to latest. Wow. Two deep, two abreast, floor to ceiling hovercraft whale shells, and all these benches and lamps. And these two college kids are just sitting there building a hydrofoil for me and something else. And he's like, "I'll bring you your headquarter parts. You can build it here." It was like the scene in Dark Crystal where Aughra just dumps the shards in front of Jen. She's like, "Here, you find the shard, the crystal shard. he just dumped all these parts in front of me, and he was like, "Build your headquarters." He goes walking off, and I'm like, "What have I gotten myself into?" So I know the feeling, man, where it's like, how badly do I want this? Yeah.
That was what it was. But yeah, it's strange. I do occasionally look at them now and just think, did I really do that? But yeah, I did.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that about Back to the Future having that allure, because, you know, that was the same feeling I kind of have every now and then, where I go, I was stupid enough at 31 to take a guy at his word that his DeLorean was in perfect running condition. And I flew up on a one-way ticket to Connecticut and drove it back home for 3 days on back roads so it wouldn't get a rock chip in the windshield, you know?
Right, yeah.
Everything ultimately went okay, barring a few near misses. But looking back, you ask yourself, a lot could have gone wrong. What was I thinking?
Yeah,
So Back to the Future makes us take risks, man. And I don't know if that's good or not. I don't know. You know?
Yeah, I think it is. I can say it is now.
Okay, well, that's okay. That I'm glad you think that, because it's going to make me sleep more soundly at night about my decision a few years ago with that.
If it makes you feel any better, I would drive halfway across the country to get a DeLorean if there was one available. Definitely.
I just keep thinking about the fact that it's like, yeah, I flew up there safe, but driving it back, it could have caught fire. It could have not started, left me stranded in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Like, it could have been anything. Snell World, thank you for the super chat. He says, holiday special is horrible. Mike, have you thought about doing an AT-AT video? I know somebody wants me to say AT-AT, but I'm going to say AT-AT because that's what I grew up with. I mean, I've had the AT-AT in videos. Maybe Luke and I can do a collaboration together talking about the AT-AT.
Yeah, be great.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So now we are into this moment where you've decided I'm going to collect Motu Origins and Transformers and some other things. What have been the challenges deciding which purchase to make when on those? And what have there been moments where you have decided against a Star Wars find to do it?
Well, at the moment, I mean, I go through phases. I generally, if I pick one thing up and it's, let's just say it's a Motu Origins, I then tend to go crazy for a couple of weeks and only buy Motu Origins. And then I'll slow that down. It's almost like I feel I need to fill a shelf. Can't just buy one or two. I need enough to fill a full shelf, and then I'll happily move on to something else.
Right.
At the moment, vintage Star Wars is taken a back seat, really, purely because of price. The prices just seem to be skyrocketing. Whenever I look for anything, the prices just seem to be crazy.
Sure.
So at the moment, I'm picking up things like Motu Origins because I feel that the RRP is just so good. To get a brand new figure on card for like sort of 16, 17 quid, and they're not 3.75s, they're big figures.
Right.
I just think is great. So I'm picking those up. Transformers, again, they're very hit and miss. So it's just, there's always so many pieces, and I'm not massively familiar with G1 Transformers again at the moment. So I could look at a listing on eBay and think it's great, and there could be 10 pieces missing. You know, so but in my head I look and I go, oh yeah, that looks great price, but that's because the 10 pieces missing. And I'm not familiar enough to know that. So I'm then flicking through my book. So at the moment, vintage Star Wars is my priority. Always has been. It always will be. But the place where I am with the figures at the moment, I'm now into the last 17 to try and complete the full 96, which is just, it was the best decision I've ever made to leave them till last. Yeah. I'll get them at the end. Yeah. So I've got 13 to get. But they're all last 17. So obviously the figures, I'm not picking up many figures at the moment. Vehicles, I've generally got the vehicles I want. There are plenty of other vehicles, but I've generally got the ones I want. So I'm kind of into things like play sets now, which pose their own problem. Which is space, really. I mean, they don't take up huge amounts of space, but they take up significant space. So vintage Star Wars in general at the moment is kind of on a back burner. If I see a bargain, I'll pick it up. But one playset that I've been chasing for a while that is causing me a bit of a headache at the moment is Jabba's playset. Price is just crazy.
Right.
I've found what I thought was a good deal on eBay, but it's missing the bowl holder. Is that what it is? The bowl. £40 the cheapest on eBay for. Yeah, I'm just.
Wow.
I'm not going to do it. So that kind of not pushed me. I think pushed is the wrong word, but that's why currently I'm picking up things like Mask, because Mask is readily available, and you can get them with boxes. Now the boxes might be a bit tatty, but you can get good vehicles with boxes for cheaper than vintage Star Wars at the moment. So you know, I tend to be picking up Motor Origins, Mask, and Transformers in front of Star Wars at the moment.
I will never forget, man. I will never forget going to the Toys R Us in Woking in 1990 or 91, and they had an entire aisle full of Mask. And I mean, it was all pristine, and that was 91. And I'm going, I remember looking around at the time, you know, you're a kid and you're not that far out from the 80s, and you think, you know, these are just toys I haven't seen in a while. And you wish you had money to spend on them, but then you go, but you don't think of them as like soon to be valuable collectibles. You know, you're just kind of like, wow. You know, and I was looking around, I think I was 13, 14 years old when I saw them. So yeah, I walked away from that experience thinking to myself, wow, the UK and apparently, you know, Western Europe are just replete with Mask toys. Like Mask really made a splash over there. So you guys probably have really good access to those, I would think.
Well, I mean, yeah, even on eBay, and I'm finding the Facebook Mask groups are really, really good. I've met some really great people on there that have helped me with the collection a lot. But yeah, Mask is a real. But I didn't realize actually until I started recollecting Mask and I started watching the cartoon again. I had no idea. In my head, it ran for so long, but the cartoon only ran for 2 years, which I had no idea until I started picking it up again. Which, yeah, in my head, it went on for a lot longer than that when I was a kid. But yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, I remember seeing some amazing stuff in the early 90s when I was there. We went into I'm gonna say it was a Boots, but it probably wasn't a Boots. But it was more of like a general retailer. It had pharmacy and it had other stuff. And
does sound like Boots.
Yeah, it was a chemist with some other stuff. And I remember just seeing carded late wave Thundercats, just Jaga and Bengali and all that stuff. And I'm like, whoa, again, they weren't collectible at the time. I just hadn't seen them in 6 years. I hadn't seen them in stores. I was like, wow, really? Then I kept walking. I could have made a fortune if I'd picked those up that day. So,
yeah. If only we knew then what we know now.
I know, right? Yeah. Hindsight is such a pain. So you are now collecting toys. Yeah. But when I say now, I mean, we're taking the Wayback Machine slightly back. So we're going back about 2 years ago now. So let's go back about 2 years. You were thinking about starting a YouTube channel. Why are you thinking about starting a YouTube channel? What was the allure? What was the appeal?
If I'm honest, the first appeal was Rachel encouraged me to do it. I'd not really thought about it. I was enjoying putting this room together, and it was Rachel was the first person to say, "Do you not think people would like to see this?" YouTube. And I said, "Well, yeah, but there'll be so many channels on YouTube that do it. This isn't new to anybody. There'll be so many people that have done stuff like this. She's like, "Well, that doesn't matter. There's so many of the same kind of channels on YouTube. People like to see different things and blah blah." And then of course lockdown hit.
Right.
Now, I continued to work through lockdown, but obviously working from home. And the more I sat in here and I looked around and I just thought, is my knowledge, enough to get me by and maybe give an opinion? I guess I very much think a lot, and I almost outthink myself, sort of out-talk myself, don't do it. I almost talk myself out of doing things. But in the end, it was Rachel that gave me the push and said, "Look, I just think people would like to see this stuff." So, so I did my very first video, which, oh my god, when I look back now, is awful.
We all have that. We all have that.
I don't even look like I'm happy to be doing it. It looks like someone's forcing me to do the video.
Yeah, just off camera. There's like a gun.
Yeah, it looks like someone has got a gun off camera saying you are going to do this video. So yeah, so there weren't a huge thing, I guess. No epiphany as such. Rachel mentioned it. Lockdown kind of came, which gave me the sort of time at home to be able to do it, and that was kind of it. I'd love to give you a sort of bigger, better backstory than that, but it was something that I'd kind of considered and thought about. And until Rachel said, "Just do it, just do a video, see how it goes," and that was kind of it. It took. I almost stopped after about 3 months because, and this was just naivety, I think. I'm not quite sure what I was expecting when I started the channel. I think I had about 13 subscribers for about 3 months.
Yeah,
they weren't budging, And I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I bothering? Nobody wants to see this stuff. Nobody wants to see me. I've got a face for radio. And so I almost stopped. And this is maybe a more interesting part of this story. I didn't stop because I got a message out of the blue from Dave at Toy Polloi.
Yep.
And basically, I'd sent a message on an ad he'd put out about the last ever video he was doing for Pocket Money Memories. And I sort of put a comment on the ad, said I'd love to be involved if possible. Didn't think for a second I would get anything, and then he messaged me privately and sort of said, I'd love you to be on it if you want to do a video for a couple of minutes long. Tell me what your favourite Pocket Money memories are, and sure enough, I did. He put me on the video, but that act on its own sort of made me sort of go, "Wow, right? Actually, no, let's keep doing this. Let's just persist." And maybe it was a little bit silly after 3 months to think that what did I expect after 3 months? But yeah, that actually kept me going. So if it weren't actually for Dave at Toy Polloi, I may not be doing this still now. So yeah, that was maybe a little bit more interesting than the first half of that question.
No, it is always tough, that first 1,000 subs. I mean, it is just like we're never going to get there. Like something is just, it's so hard to break through, and I'm talking from 9 years ago. It's got to be exponentially more difficult now. But, when I was starting out, it was, when you assess the landscape, then it was like, well, there's a good number of Transformers reviewers, which fortunately I'm not really competing with. And then there's, I think Pixel Dan was just breaking away from that new toy smell. And I was like, well, aside from him, I don't really know of anybody, so I was like, well, I'll just do this and see what happens. But it was still not, it wasn't like, oh, if you'd have done it back when I did it, you'd have had 1,000 like that. Like it wasn't. It was that first 100, then 250, and then 5. It was just like, my God, we're never. I felt like Frodo carrying the ring up the mountain for that last stretch. It was just like, that's horrible. But yeah. Okay, so you decide you're gonna start doing this YouTube channel, and in the background, you're also you're gonna have to give me a time frame on this because I'm not sure how they dovetail. In the background, you've also become what appears to be a professional TK trooper. Am I right?
No.
Oh, okay, because I've seen you in armor. So I figure, and I hope I haven't given anything away by saying that, but I know that you love the Stormtrooper helmets and the Imperial helmets. You have a whole gallery case of those. So are you into costuming as the Imperial troops?
I used to be. I used to do quite a bit of cosplay. That's kind of slowed down a little bit now for a number of reasons, really, because I've got more heavily into toy collecting and cosplay kind of ran alongside it for a while. But Stormtrooper armor was just something I always wanted. I remember there was well before lockdown, in fact. We have locally, we have sort of a few charity organizations run like a yearly festival. And it's where you would go. They have stalls and things like that. But they always used to have a couple of Stormtroopers from the UK garrison wandering around and taking pictures with people and things like that. And again, it's usually somebody else that needs to say to me, do this or do that. But we were sat having something to eat, myself and Rachel, and the Stormtroopers come walking by, and you can hear them talking with the mic bursts and the static bursts, and it's like, oh, how great is that? I'd love to have a Stormtrooper. I'd love to have an actual Stormtrooper outfit. I'd love to be a Stormtrooper. And Rachel looked at me and said, "Why can't you be?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, you talk about it like you can't be a Stormtrooper. Why can't you get some armor, and why can't you do it?"
Right.
And I kind of just sat there and sort of, well, no, there's no real reason why I can't. No, I can't. I guess, So I started looking. It was quite as simple as that. So I started looking for armor. But of course, I started looking. There's all so many different types of armor. It'd be TK armor, or I always forget the name. There's another company in the UK. I always forget the name, but
there's the guys that have the pedigree with it. The guys that actually made the stuff for the film.
I always forget. But anyway, yeah. So there's so many different versions, and I can't think of what it was. But anyway, so I started looking, and eventually, again, I weren't expecting to find it, but again, it's quite a funny story. I found a guy on eBay, and I looked at all he was listing. But what was strange was he had nothing else listed other than Stormtrooper armor. Now that might not seem strange in itself, but he was rolling listings. So every 3 hours, a new listing of Stormtrooper armor would come on. No real set time for it finishing. It was just random. He would list them through the night, just every 3 hours, just on another set, just purely for bid. You had to bid and win it. No buy it now prices, just bid and win. And in the end, I set my alarm for like 5 a.m. or something like that. There was one finishing at 4:57 a.m. or something like that. And I set my alarm. I thought, I'm going to wake up. Hopefully, it's finishing at a silly time. It might be at a good price. Generally, they were going around. They were finishing prices were around £600-700, which wasn't bad. So I woke myself up, and this particular set of armor was on 257. I thought, wow, like 10 minutes to go, and it's on 257. I'll have a go at that. I won the armor. But the reason why I got it in the end for as cheap as I did, this particular set was a kit. It just came as a kit. No strapping attached. It wasn't ready to wear. You had to do all the work yourself. So it came in like big sheets with the armor molded inside it. So I had to cut it all out, shape it, put all the strap into it, hand paint the helmet, fix the helmet together, put the lenses in, etc. So I got it for cheap in the end, I'm assuming because all the work had to be done yourself.
Right.
So that took me on and off a few hours a night here and there, about 2 years to get it ready to wear. And it was just something that I just wanted to do. I've never submitted an application to the UK Garrison. I don't actually think the armour, the way I've put it together, would pass anyway, because it's got to go together in a certain way, hasn't it? And, but I just do it for friends and family. I do a little bit of. A friend of mine has got a shop locally that sells Star Wars memorabilia and things. So on May the 4th, I do a little bit of PR outside his shop for him and things like that. Friends' birthday parties, if their kids like Star Wars, will you come to their birthday parties as a Stormtrooper? And so I do things like that just for myself. But I've not done it for a while. It may have shrunk in the wash, the armor, if I try and put it on now.
You guys are really fortunate where you are, because I don't have to tell you this, but for those of you who, don't live in the UK or haven't studied a lot of film history about our favorite films of our generation, is that because of the dollar against the pound back in the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of these iconic movies that we all still worship were made in the UK. Like, they were all made there. So all the artisans, the craftsmen, the costume houses, they were outfitting all of these movies. And so all of the lore, all the information, all the data is over there. My big love as far as a costume goes is Indiana Jones. Well, that was all made over there. I mean, the hatter that made all the hats for the first 3 films is still in operation over there, Herbert Johnson. So, and coincidentally, they're the guys that made the hat for Tom Baker for Doctor Who. It's no surprise. A lot of my stuff was bought from over there and then shipped over here, which was leading to my next question, conveniently, which is, how much stuff have you had to buy for your collection, toys, whatever it is, from overseas, and what kind of experience have you had with that?
If I'm honest, I very, very rarely purchase from overseas. Purely because I have this irrational fear of that it just won't arrive. And if it does arrive, then I'll get hit with ridiculous import tax or anything like that. So it's very rare that I buy from overseas. But I'm very lucky that I do have people that I know that have contacts, if you like, in the US and things like that, that if I absolutely wanted or had to buy something from, whether it be the US or Australia or anywhere, I do have people that would sort of do that on my behalf.
Right.
And then I would just deal with them. But I very rarely buy from overseas. And that's just because I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly.
Right.
I just convince myself that it won't come and that I'll get sort of stitched up, and that sounds really like I'm being really stereotypical there, doesn't it? If it's not from the UK, that it's not legit. But I get very, very worried about buying from overseas, so I very rarely do it. And if I do, I generally go through somebody else.
Right. Yeah. So, I have a good friend who lives in Cornwall, and
Yeah.
He and I have traded parcels on occasion. He sends me one. It's usually full of Haribo Chamalos, and then I send him one back, and it's full of whatever he's looking for, and Charleston Chew and things like that. But sometimes there's actual things in there besides candy as well. And I did not know at the time that some of these packages going toward the UK were randomly hit with big fees that were big, tariffs.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And Ben never said anything. And so I'm getting packages from him, and they're showing up, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm eating my Chamalos and just, being real. And he's getting stuff not telling me that they're telling him, hey, if you want to actually take possession of this package, it's going to cost you another 30 pounds, something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
So I finally got wind of this through a conversation like you and I just had with another person. And I wrote him, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm like, I know it's been several months. I said, but I want you to tally up whatever those fees were, because I have to believe you got some. And I said, and I want you to tell me what that total was, because I do not believe in sending a gift to somebody that they then have to pay money for.
Absolutely, yeah.
And he was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, no, the principle of the thing. And he was like, all right, And so I was glad that I was able to make him even on that, because it's like,
and that's if it turns up where customs haven't just shredded it as well.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Not only you got to pay extra, you get it and it's wrecked because they've decided to open it, and then
I've had so many packages show up from overseas where they said checked for customs, and thankfully nothing had been disturbed, nothing was taken. It does make you a little nervous, and especially during the lockdown. You'll probably get a kick out of this. I was and still have been pre-ordering all of the classic Doctor Who Blu-ray sets from the UK that have been announced.
Right.
Well, when the lockdown happened, Amazon UK stopped shipping to Amazon US or to the US. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So a friend of mine who is also a big Star Wars collector, he was like, have Amazon send it to me, and then I'll post it to you. And so you guys over there are like my what's the word? My hookup for my, British heroin. It's like I need my stuff. I need my stuff. So I try to reciprocate. So I would like to extend the offer to you. Like if there's anything that you ever see that's stateside and you're nervous about it, just hit me up, man.
You might regret that. You might regret that.
No, I really won't. I really won't. I promise.
No, thank you though. Yeah, I will bear that in mind. Thank you.
Sure. Now tell me a little bit about where you are now, both as a YouTuber and a collector. Let's talk a little bit about how Luke's feeling about the whole, YouTube channel, and this is an opportunity, I think, for you to tell us what you like to focus on your channel, what you like to talk about, and how you're feeling about it, and all that. So take the floor, sir.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the moment now, it's strange when I said earlier about how I got sort of quite disillusioned early in 3 months in, maybe I was already quite disillusioned. Whereas now, not even 2 years in, I look at my YouTube channel and I'm very, very relaxed about it. I think from where it was then to where it is now, it might sound strange to say, but the content almost comes secondary. The videos almost come secondary now. Because I kind of focus on people that I've met, friends I've made. The video itself, I mean, obviously I always try and make as good a content as I can, but I'm nowhere near as worried as I used to be about the channel. Because I sort of think to myself, the channel will just chug away now. I don't feel I've got to worry. And when I say I don't feel like I've got to worry, I don't mean I don't care about the channel and I'm not, concerned about the quality of the content. But I don't panic about subs. I don't panic about views. I just try to enjoy putting good stuff out, or as best as I can, replying to people's comments. And it's just something that I now feel I can just sort of breathe out and actually enjoy. Whereas maybe 18 months ago, I found it quite stressful. In fact, I found it very stressful.
Right.
And a big thing that I worried about was, quality of the content, You know, is my audio good? Is this good? Is the picture quality good enough? You know, am I keeping up with everyone else's videos? You know, all these channels and well. So, you know, I'm really happy with where the channel is. And if I ever get to 1,000 subs, I don't think I intend to monetize. I don't think I intend to get a Patreon. I'm not really concerned. You know, the channel doesn't cost me anything to run. I quite just enjoy doing it for the sake of doing it.
Sure.
And the people I've met, you know, the friends I've made, it's quite staggering, really, when I think about it. You know, I mean, even like right now, while I sit here, not even 2 years ago, I watched your channel for the first time, and now all of a sudden here I am, you know, on a one-to-one with yourself on a live stream, which is somewhere I never ever thought I would be. So, yeah, I'm very, very relaxed about the channel at the moment, but I'm really enjoying, you know, being involved in it and the community that I'm involved in. I really don't worry about the channel at all now. I'm very live and let live about it. You know, it will just chug away. And what will be. If I get to 1,000, great. If I don't think it'll bother me at all.
Right.
As far as my collection goes, sorry, was that the question? Was it?
That was part of the question, yeah. And
okay.
It's giving me questions to store up, but go ahead.
Okay. As far as my collection goes, yeah, vintage Star Wars, I do find that a bit stressy, which is why, like I say, I step away from it a little bit now. It's quite relaxing to step away. And that sounds awful. Like I'm saying, like Star Wars is really stressful. It is stressful, but I don't dislike it for it. I don't know if I'm making any sense. The problem I've got at the moment with my Star Wars collection is, I find it very hard now to chase down certain things because there's always somebody that has got deeper pockets. You know, if I'm bidding against somebody on eBay, there's always somebody there to beat me to it. And even the Facebook groups, I joined some of the Facebook groups thinking I will probably be able to get some of the things on here that I can't get on eBay because the prices are far, far better.
Right.
But then you've got to be first to it because the minute it's on Facebook, it's gone. You know, and unless you sit there, refresh, which none of us can do, then I'm never first to anything. So joining the Facebook groups didn't really help me.
But I could go into that all day, but I'll keep my mouth shut.
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, they didn't help me for not only that reason, there was other reasons as well, which we won't go into. But no, as far as my collection goes as a whole, I'm quite enjoying what it feels like I'm fine-tuning it now. You know, the longer I go, I kind of feel that my taste is changing slightly as I go, but I kind of feel like I'm fine-tuning it. You know, I don't have anything in storage that I want out. Anything that I've got in storage is stuff that I'm prepared to move on. I don't have things in storage and then like rotate or anything like that. I generally just buy things now that I know I want out. I want on display and I want to keep. It's very rare now that I have anything in storage that I intend to keep and I want on display. Anything in storage is generally what I want to move. So I'm very happy with where both are, really. The only thing at the moment that I do find a bit stressful is where I am with my vintage Star Wars collection now. And that's only because I'm finding things very, very hard to get. And I'm always beaten to it, either just because someone's quicker than me or there's always somebody with deeper pockets. So that side of things is a little bit stressful, but
I'm not going to ask you, and I'm officially not going to ask you which figures you lack in the last 17 because I don't want there to be any kind of premature rush on them anywhere else. So don't worry, I'm not going there. I have experienced that myself sometimes. But what I would like to point out is something you just said just a second ago, where you were talking about how you're trying to get to 1,000 subs. And when you do, you're not even sure if you're going to monetize or Patreon or anything like that. Now, reason my ears kind of popped up with that was because I have the very same tack that you have, which is I was politely bullied into a Patreon by everybody that watches my channel. Like they kept begging me for like 2 years, please do a Patreon. But I was like, no, I don't want to do that. The monetization factor, it wasn't until I had 10,000 or more that suddenly a networks were always trying to get me and I kept saying no. They try to get everybody. That I'm not special in that regard. They're predatory. They try and get any small channel they can.
Yeah.
But when we finally felt confident to get with a network, they turned out to be kind of milquetoast, and we wanted out because they were just taking one of the prerequisites was, in order to be part of the network, you have to monetize your channel, which we're like, okay, all right. So we did, and then they were lousy, so we left. Well, now we're monetized. It's very hard to kind of undo that. But at that point, it was like, well, all right, but it's not costing the viewer anything, because it's just whatever YouTube decides to give us. So my point in saying that is this. A lot of people might not be aware of this. I'm not sure, but YouTube, people who aren't YouTubers, you are aware of it, I'm sure. YouTube is constantly trying to pressure people who are YouTubers, who have monetization capability, to pepper more ads into every video they make. And they're like, you're gonna earn more money if you do. And it's like, well, maybe, but I'm also going to irritate my subscribers to the point that they don't want to watch my stuff anymore.
Yeah.
So for I'd say at least 5 years now, I have been resisting, and I don't mean resisting like I'm struggling. I mean resisting YouTube's continued attempts to add more ads into my videos. So I'm always right on top of opting out of things they're going to start making a default setting. I'm opting out. And so my videos still only have an ad at the front that YouTube populates into it. And I don't do anything where I'm like, hey, before we start talking about Imperial Dignitary, I'd like to tell you about Experian VPN. It's a great way to get around the subject. I hate it when big channels do that. I hate it. So I feel what you're saying about that stuff. But that being said, when you get to 1,000 subs and you can default that one ad at the front as monetization, that's the minimal thing that you can control. I've never had an audience member resent that, because that's not costing them anything. And to paraphrase a great scene from Tombstone, where the guy looked at Wyatt Earp and he says, I've never known a rich man who didn't have a guilty conscience. So here comes the paraphrase. I've already got a headache running this YouTube channel. Might as well have the money too. My point is that you're not taking anything away from your subscribers by having the default skippable ad at the front.
Yeah.
But you're not mandated or obligated to annoy the crap out of your audience or defy your own principles by dropping in 50 ads in the middle of the stupid thing either. You can do the bare minimum and not, tick anybody off. So, yeah.
I think if I get there, I mean, I may make a different decision at that point.
I'm not trying to bully you at anything.
No. And I'm not sure I know enough about it at this point anyway. I think the overriding feeling, especially with things like Patreon, and just for clarity, I have no issue, obviously, with things like Patreon or anything like that. None whatsoever. But one thing I don't do, and again, Rachel will attest to this, I don't work well under pressure. I never have. I never will. For example, I feel I'm quite good at math. I think my math skills are pretty good. But if we ever watch Countdown and I hear that clock ticking and I know I've got 30 seconds to do that equation, there's no way I'm going to do it, because the minute I hear the clock ticking, I go to pieces. I'm not good under pressure. And the thing is, with things like Patreon, if all of a sudden I had any, even very, very minimal financial support from Patreons, I think I would feel no longer in complete control of the channel. So if I wanted to take 2 or 3 months off, I would feel under pressure to not do that, because if people are contributing to the channel, then they're not going to be happy to be contributing month after month if I'm not putting any content out.
Absolutely.
Whereas sorry, go on. Sorry, Michael.
No, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, whereas at this point in time, I'm in complete control. Nobody is, in any way contributing to the channel. And if I want to stop doing videos for 4 months, I can do that with totally guilt-free. Whereas if all of a sudden, they can stop at any point. I understand that. But I will feel that if people are contributing, I have to keep making content. I have to, because people are paying for it. That's how my head would work. So I kind of just don't feel that no matter where the channel goes, whether I hit 1,000 subs or whether I don't, I just don't see that I ever want to monetize or get a Patreon or anything like that, because I feel it will bring pressure, which I don't want.
It absolutely does. And, that was why I held off for a long time. the nice thing is that in my case, it wasn't something where I just started up a Patreon like
Yeah,
let's see what I get. It was literally me holding out for 2 years, and people were like, I want to help, please, please, please.
Yeah.
And finally, Tim and Melinda were like, I think they're going to start feeling like you just, don't want them around if you.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, but I've never, like, I don't do the thing where it's like, hey guys, click that bell and subscribe and like my, join my Patreon. I hate that. So I don't do any of that in my videos. It's like, okay, here's a little thing in the description that will indicate we have a Patreon that people can or can't read. They don't have to. If they join it, great. If not, great. I don't care. Patreon to me is like the stock market of a YouTube channel. It's like, that's the way I treat it, where it's like people can invest in it or not. And also, it has added pressure. There's no doubt. You're absolutely right. It has added pressure about, yes, Red Snow World, I do Patreon videos. That's what I was about to say. Please don't misunderstand what I was just saying about, the other thing. What I'm saying is it has added pressure, but it's also something where I recognize that it's brought those hardcore viewers of my channel what they've been asking for, behind the scenes stuff, this and that. So I think the best, from my experience, the best way that Patreon worked out was that it wasn't something I executed on. It was something that was brought up by popular demand.
Yeah.
And if you see that over like a 1.5 year long period, people are just Patreon, then you can revisit it. But until then, it's just kind of like, don't worry that you don't have it. Like, don't worry about that.
No.
Yeah. So, all right. Now I'm totally thrown off, and I'm in Patreon world because anyway. So now I was curious to find out not what you're looking for a collection, because we don't want anyone to know what that is. But I am curious to find out what you're working on for your channel coming up. Like, are you taking a break over the holidays and then coming back strong in January, or?
I plan to take. I generally drop weekly videos on a Sunday, and I thought to myself, obviously Christmas and the New Year both fall on the weekend, so I thought, I'll take 2 weeks and then I'll come back in January. However, recently I received quite a sizable Christmas gift box from a very good friend of the channel. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel I need to get that out before. No, not before Christmas, because it's Christmas on Saturday, but ready for the Sunday. So Boxing Day, I'm hoping to drop that on Boxing Day, because I just kind of feel that loses its meaning if I wait till the middle of January to do that. So I'm hoping that that's going to be ready for Sunday. I have got a few videos in the pipeline. They're generally pickup videos. I'm very excited that there's a couple of mask videos coming soon, which they are not figure or vehicle related, which might interest some people. But mask update. So it's mostly pickup stuff, but there's definitely mask and definitely some Star Wars stuff coming. And quite a few gift donations. Again, I get so many gift donations, which is unbelievably generous from people. I almost get a little bit embarrassed by it, if I'm totally honest. So there's going to be some of those as well. So nothing groundbreaking, but generally just pickups. So looking forward to that.
Well, that's great. Now, I also know that you have guested on a number of other channels that are sort of a community out there. I know that you're close with Universal Shabby Reviews. Great
guys. Yeah, great guys.
They're toy collectors, but like you, their focus is Star Wars as well. Like, they do other things, but because I know like Tez is into Spectrum, and Spectrum Gaming and Transformers. And I know Shabby collects some Masters of the Universe, and Matt collects some Masters of the Universe and stuff. But the bedrock of all those guys is Star Wars as well, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay. And then I think you're also connected up with Usual Mike Television, if that's correct.
I speak to Mike. Yeah, I do speak to Mike frequently. I think I've been on a live stream once. I managed to jump on sort of midway through, but the time difference sometimes makes it very difficult to sort of collaborate with Usual Mike. But no, I speak to Mike quite regularly. Obviously speak to the USR lads a lot as well. But I mean, there's so many other channels now that I sort of speak to on a regular basis.
Sure.
Obviously, yourself is obviously one now, which is very, very nice. But yeah, so many. I speak to Dean a lot, all things 80s. Yeah, it's really nice, and that's what I said earlier about. It sounds stupid. I don't mean it how it might sound. It's like I'm saying that I don't care about the channel, but the channel and the content kind of comes secondary now to all those other things. I speak to a lot of these guys now, sort of almost daily. Even when I'm not, doing videos, we speak outside of the YouTube world, and on a personal level, which is fantastic. Yeah, really nice. Never thought I would be doing stuff like that.
Gerard, thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm sure we're all looking forward to the video coming this Sunday.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gerard.
Well, that kind of leads me into sort of my final discussion topic for this, which is, and then afterwards we can just freestyle. But I am curious, now that all of us over a period since 2006-ish have been on YouTube, and we finally figured out how to create channels and stuff, it's really given us a way to connect that even the basic internet didn't allow us to connect. Like social media, for all of its faults, has really allowed all of us to find each other and then get to know one another and truly become friends, like I have with Tony and Sal and Dean from All Things 80s. And I love the guys over at Universal Shabby Reviews. With that, I think comes a certain amount of extra understanding about our different toy world, our toy experiences as kids, and what the landscape was like then for us versus what it's like now. What do you think sets the British toy experience, both when you were kids and now, apart from, say, the United States, from what you've learned just being in, the YouTube space all this time?
How do I think it's different?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's a tough question. I personally think I think it's more certain lines seem more available. I think it's just specific things. I mean, I find certain things easier to come across in the US than in the UK, but I think availability is just the biggest one I notice. Mm-hmm. The amount of times that I often see things that I need in America, but I shy away from them because, I'm convinced they're not going to come. So there are certain things that I just find readily available in the US that I can't find here. And a lot of the time I sacrifice them because I think, well, it won't come. It just don't buy it.
We've got to fix that for you. We've got to fix that.
It's something that I've had a really rational feel. I mean, my partner Rachel will tell you that I'm autistic. She's always, you're autistic. You've got autistic traits. You live in this black and white world, where it's either do or don't, go or don't go, yes or no. And she's like, look, order that. It might come. It won't come. I'm not going to bother. But yeah, that is really. I generally don't look at how I feel the different a lot. But if I had to pick something, it would just be more availability. I look for availability all the time. And there are certain things that I think if I was in the US, I could find them far, far easier.
Right.
Wow. Is that right, Matt? Sorry, I've just seen Universal Collectors. Wow. Yes. So that really, it's not the most interesting answer, but yeah, availability, I think at times is what I notice more than anything.
Yeah, availability. I was curious because the reason that I bring this up is because there's such a strong nostalgia, and rightly so. There's no criticism on that back end of this train. There's just such a acute nostalgia for the Palatoy experience, the Action Man experience. Those toys that were, or toys and or brands that were completely unique to the British and Commonwealth experience, Canada, Australia, things like that. This guy right here, they are completely unique to the British toy experience of our youth. And with it comes a kind of different perspective on all those things. You guys had chromed R2-D2s in your X-Wing fighters. You guys had, people think, oh, well, that's not, that's just a little thing. But when you add them all up, it creates a completely different kind of world and a collecting environment and a buying environment and a childhood play environment. And, with the first time I ever saw a picture in the Tomart Star Wars merchandise guide in the 90s of the British Death Star from Palatoy, my world blew up. Like, I was like, why didn't we have this? Like, it was just like, poof, and so I guess some people say maybe you're too close to it, Michael, but I don't think so. I think there is something there that's fundamentally different. You guys as adult collectors went through completely different bits of drama with your stuff, whether it was the Toy Tony scandal that happened, because you guys had overstock packaging that was unearthed there that could be reused, and nobody knew that. We don't have finds like that here. You guys have things that happen, not to the same magnitude of what happened in Chile with the mask find, but in a way, it's that kind of thing. We might find an overstock of like a box of late 90s or late 80s GI Joes, like one case or something, and somebody posted online. But that kind of stuff, you guys have this because I'm sorry, I keep ranting. I don't mean to.
No, please.
You guys, because of at the time, your labor laws, you guys had factories in your country building Star Wars vehicles.
Yeah.
You were manufacturing your own with the parts provided by the distributor. We didn't have that. It just all came shipped over from overseas. And so I just feel like there's something, I don't know how to describe it. And because I also actively collect modern UK toys like Doctor Who character options, and then I recently got that castle up there from the 2006 Robin Hood line, which I could only get from overseas. I had to get it through an eBay UK seller and stuff. I guess maybe it's because I'm not over there with you, and so it's a false sense. But I do sense a different environment.
Every so often, there's people in the UK that you'll see an article about the so-called Palatoy landfill where everything got buried, and then every so often there'll be a craze of some people. I'm going to go find it. I'm going to go find it. I'm still not totally convinced, but I think some people still believe they find the right place to dig. They're digging in the wrong place. Find the right place to dig, and they're going to unearth an absolute ton of Palatoy Star Wars figures and things like that. Whether that's true or not, I'm not entirely sure. But I think somewhere down in Leicester, you just dig it up, and there's going to be a ton of Palatoy. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But I just have this picture in my head that I'm going to watch somebody on a beach digging for Palatoy stuff, and I'm going to be stood with a friend saying they're digging in the wrong place. I'd love to do that.
And then a monkey eats poison dates. Connor Fuller, thank you for the super chat. He says, I think it's brilliant that from all over the globe, we all share very similar memories of playing from growing up. It's very special.
Yeah, absolutely, Connor. Absolutely,
very much Nick with £2 says, I keep offering Luke a Palatoy Action Man.
It does. I don't collect Action Man, so I politely decline, only because I think it could go to a better home.
So I had to talk to Tony at Analog about this a few months back. It was in a private conversation. We were just talking, but I loved watching James May's Toy Stories series, where he picked a toy and then he did this kind of like documentary about his love of plasticine or his love of electric trains or his love of whatever. And he did this one on Action Man, where as part of the series or part of the episode, he's doing the history of Action Man, doing the current collectible market for Action Man, but then also trying to actually get an Action Man parachute guy up in a rocket to come down safely. And there's a whole like James May side to the whole thing. Well, in that part where he's going to the toy shows, he's talking to vendors, he's talking to toy collectors, and all of them, this is obviously in the UK, all of them are like, yeah, I'm not really an Action Man guy. Like, I'm not really into Action Man. And when I was watching it, I thought, oh, well, this Action Man must kind of be looked over. But then I see guys like Tony, and I see, other forums and channels about British Action Man, and I go, no, this seems like a pretty big deal. Like the prices are, through the roof on them. So there's like two different versions of the story of Action Man's cultural, cachet. in England, one is like, nah, and the other one's like, yeah.
It's just something I never had as a kid, and the overriding thing when it comes to collecting for me is it has to hold a connection. It has to hold a connection, whether it's something I had as a kid or played with as a kid. I mean, for example, Motu, I didn't have a huge amount of Motu myself, but my cousin had everything. And we used to regularly spend time with him on a weekend. So we would play with Motu, even though they weren't ours. So I have a connection. I've never had any kind of connection with Action Man. I can certainly appreciate it, you know, where it's come from and things like that. And I think they're great. They just don't have a connection for me at all. I have no pull to buy them, you know, but I certainly do appreciate them.
That right there to me sounds like the authentic thing. It's kind of like me, you know, when people ask me, you know, Michael, why don't you collect what's a good example? Because I've eventually ended up with something of everything. Micronauts. They're like, why don't you collect Micronauts? And I'm like, well, I really like them, but they're very expensive and they're very hard to find in good shape. And because I have zero, I'm not about to start down that path right now.
Yeah.
I've got enough videos to make as it is. Bile, thank you for the comment. He says, Michael, do you know in January B&M are releasing it? Yes, I have heard about the updated robot set and Fourth Doctor. It looks great. I watched the Batman March YouTube channel. He gets those things in advance, and I'm like, ooh, I want to get that. But I still don't have the new First Doctor TARDIS set, which I also will be getting somehow, some way, even if I have to pay inflated shipping prices to get it from the UK. Well, we are at the 90-minute mark. So at this point, Luke, I just wanted to, this is where I kind of open it up and just kind of ask, is there anything that you've wanted to talk about or address that I maybe haven't asked you about, or something you want to, you know, tackle for a few minutes? Or
no, I wouldn't say necessarily tackle. I guess you touched upon earlier the my helmet collection, my 1.1 Star Wars helmet collection. Obviously, helmet collecting is something that I'm big into as well. That runs alongside my action figures, etc. Again, that's slowed down slightly at the moment because you will notice on my if you've watched any of my videos, you'll notice in the background I've got 3 cabinets. They are all now full. So the issue I've got with helmet collector at the moment, because I am, you know, 1.1 scale helmet collector, and a few people have sort of said, we haven't seen you buy a helmet for quite a while. Are you not collecting them anymore? So the official the official statement is, yes, I am collecting 1.1 scale helmets still. The problem is, at the moment, I can't get another cabinet in because I've no more room to fit another cabinet. So I'm now at the stage where it's a 1-in, 1-out situation. So if I buy a new 1.1 scale helmet at the moment, I then have to decide which helmet is coming out of the cabinets and go elsewhere. So the next one, I believe, it's not out till November, but I have seen the Bo-Katan helmet has just been released by Black Series for pre-order. But again, that kind of falls into what I've just said about Action Man. It's a beautiful looking helmet. But I don't feel I have a huge connection with the character, even though I do like the helmet. So it might be worth somebody chiming in the chat, maybe. So I'm very undecided. So if anyone wants to help me out with this decision, I'm very undecided. I don't have a huge connection with the character, which is generally, again, where I base, do I want that helmet? You know, generally my helmets come from the original trilogy, although I do have the Mando and things like that. But I don't have a huge connection with the character. I've not watched Clone Wars and things like that. But I do love the helmet. So do I buy it?
Now, do you have the X-Wing pilot helmets as well?
I have Luke's X-Wing pilot helmet. I didn't get Wedge. I didn't get Wedge. Again, because the X-Wing, if I was going to buy one X-Wing helmet, it would be Luke's. So I kind of didn't feel the need for Wedge. So I've got Luke's. I just don't know if I'm going to get Bo-Katan, because I don't know if I'll look at it and think, I'm not sure if I should have bought that. But I do like the helmet itself. So maybe somebody can help me out with that. Would you buy it? If you don't feel you've got a connection with the character but love the helmet, would you buy it?
Not me. I mean, I was tempted by the Wedge one because I like Wedge, but I didn't actually buy it. And I've had opportunity in a store when I ran across it to buy it, and I decided not to. I have the Black Series Stormtrooper basic helmet that came out during Rogue One, and I have the Luke Skywalker X-Wing helmet, and they kind of sit caddy to either side of my TV. As far as other helmets and things, a guy sent me a fan made Boba Fett helmet, like an actual cosplay Boba Fett helmet, which is gorgeous, and it sits now by the Stormtrooper helmet. I bought a Mandalorian helmet, but it was before the Black Series one came out for the video I did about the whole Disney Star Wars thing, because at the end, you wear the Mando helmet, knock over all the dominoes and stuff.
Yeah,
I needed the helmet for that, so I had to buy it from an artisan, much like the Boba Fett helmet came from. I did that, but then afterwards, I sent that to Tim Ward, our RetroBlasting moderator and admin, because he's a big Mandalorian fan for the show, and I don't have Disney Plus. Again, everybody, don't panic. I don't have any problem with Mandalorian as a TV show, okay? I just don't have Disney Plus, therefore I don't have access to it, all right? So I'm not a Mandalorian hater, all right? But yeah, like the helmets take up a lot of space. So like Tom Burgess from I Grew Up Star Wars, he loves the helmets, but even he ran out of space collecting just OT helmets, you know, like, you know, Star Wars Stormtrooper, Empire Stormtrooper, Jedi Stormtrooper, TIE Fighter pilot, AT-AT driver, you know, and I'm like, yeah, you're out of room. And then he got X-Wing helmets as well. It's like, you're out of room.
There is, and there's so many helmets that still, I mean, they are out there, but Black Series, there are so many helmets that I'd still like Black Series to do. I mean, that might be an interesting question. So if you could pick one helmet for Black Series to do, Michael, that they haven't yet done, which do you think you would pick?
You know, as much as this sounds odd, I don't think they'd do it because it would require cloth, and they just don't seem to want to do anything that requires stitch.
I get the feeling I know where you're going.
Yeah, I'd love a Rebel Commando indoor helmet.
Right. No, I didn't think you were going to pick that one. Yeah, that would be nice.
What do you think I was going for?
I thought you were going to pick Boosh.
Oh, that'd be a great one. I would love that too. That would be awesome. I would buy that in a heartbeat. I really would.
Yeah, definitely, I would. Yeah,
that would be a great one. But
I think that would probably be too complex for them, maybe.
Yeah, I think Hasbro now has started to shy away from anything requiring some cloth elements and stitching and anything like that. I don't know why, but they don't. So yeah. But I would love to have, you know, because at first I had this fantasy that I would eventually have all of Luke's gear. Like I would have all of his stuff, you know, like I would have his Bespin outfit, but I would have his New Hope and Empire and Jedi sabers, and I would have his Hoth hat, which I do, and I would have his Bespin boots, and I would have, and the Endor helmet that with that donut thing was the hardest thing to find. And I did find a guy on Etsy out of the UK, no surprise, who was able to make this really awesome one, but I never pulled the trigger on it because I was like, I'm going to pay several $100 and get it, and then I'm going to have it here. And again, I got plenty of stuff that's like that in my house, so there's not like I'm against it. But you go through those phases where you go, well, right now, this 2-month period, I'm feeling extra practical, and then you don't buy anything. And then 2 months later, you try and play catch up. So
yeah. I've just seen a few in the comments say Biker Scout Trooper. That would definitely be a good one.
I'm shocked they haven't done that yet.
Not in the Black Series, no. Yeah, you would think that would be right up there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. Yeah, because Biker Scouts are like some of the most popular armor as far as like people loving the way it looks and everything.
Yeah. Boosh helmet can. Yeah.
So
sorry, I was looking at the chat there, Michael. Sorry,
you're allowed to look at the chat. You're not allowed to look at the chat.
No, I don't. I always feel I'm being distracted.
I'm putting you in the green room until you know how to behave. You collect these Black Series helmets as you know, as a matter of course, if they relate to them. Is there anything else Black Series that you would like to see Black Series label do that they haven't even attempted? I don't even mean helmets, but like maybe something entirely new.
That's a good question, because obviously they do the lightsabers, which would have been my obvious answer. I don't know. Could Black Series branch out into cosplay? Maybe. Is that? I don't know. Maybe. Could they do outfits? I think they probably could.
I think that'd be neat. I know. I think there's always these companies that try and take up the whole costume replica thing. They always have terrible luck. And you sit there and you go, I wouldn't throw a lot of money. I only throw money at a licensed costume company when I know they finally have the stuff in stock. I never get in on pre-orders, and because you end up waiting and then these things fall through. Like even Master Replicas, which had this great run, suddenly just collapsed in on itself, because of reasons. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be quite cool to see sort of official merchandise outfits, and I think as long as, and this is going to sound obvious, but as long as they're accurate and they're done well, which I think they could do. You may have to put a fairly hefty price tag on it, but one thing that I found, and I only put together maybe obviously the Stormtrooper armor, I did do because I've got to do everything on a budget. I always try to get as good a looking stuff as I can for as cheap as possible. Obviously, I put together an Inferno Squad outfit, which I was actually really proud of, and I still am kind of putting together a Boba Fett outfit that has just been on hiatus for quite a while now. But I did find that I often bought things that I thought were good, and then you get them and they're just so bad, and you just move them on, and whether it's because they don't fit well, or whether it's because you look at the photo and think, is that this? Is that the listing picture? Is that really this?
Yeah.
And so I often found is for every 2 or 3 things that I got that I was really happy with, and I thought, yeah, that is exactly what I thought it was, there was also 2 or 3 things that you get and you think that is definitely not what I've bought.
Right.
I found cosplay, items, and trying to get good stuff was a bit of a minefield.
That's why I've gone completely over to Magnoli Clothiers. It helps that I've actually known Magnoli since he wasn't even doing clothiers, back when he was an archaeologist and we were just on the Indiana Jones forums together. But he has started such a great clothing website for guys who love movie inspired clothes that, you do all your measurements and he custom makes everything for you. And he's been around for years and years. He's not going anywhere. He's an established business. And this shirt is Magnoli. So I feel you on that. It's like, I just don't trust fly by night eBay sellers for costuming stuff anymore. Like, I have to look at their feedback rating and really see, and it has to be something. I know this sounds bad, but it's like, is that object or item that I'm looking at something they could screw up? Like, is it something that, so I tend to go to Etsy for that stuff. And I still look really hard on the Etsy, on the different Etsy people too, because sometimes the highest priced person on Etsy for that prop or whatever is not actually the best option. Yeah. Sometimes they're just full of themselves, and they're like, I can give you a Han Solo Greedo version blaster. It'll only be $1,500, and you're like, and then you find out, you look in the fine print, it's like resin, and you're like, what? Like resin? Then you back off and you find somebody selling like an all metal one for like $350, and you're like, oh,
yeah. I mean, again, I remember. I do most of my purchases on eBay, but again, I try to be very careful. But I remember, every so often I'll just casually browse. Rich might be watching something on TV, so I'll casually browse eBay like you do, and I often just type in things like 1.1 helmets or whatever. And there was one guy, I believe he's still on eBay, selling, like what you've just said, selling 1.1 scale Stormtrooper helmets, and he was doing Inferno Squad as well, TIE pilots. They were like £800 and £900, and They look, you just look at something and think, right, hang on, that cannot be right. He's not asking for £900. It looked like a foam. It looked like painted foam.
Right.
Generally, it looked like painted foam.
Yeah.
Like, and when I say foam, I mean like a sponge foam. That kind of.
Right. Yeah. Like playmat foam. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like £900 for that. That cannot be. And then you start swiping the pictures, and he is quite literally showcasing this. And I was like, am I going to swipe? And there's just going to be a picture of a better helmet. And why that's there, I don't know. But no, it was like a sponge helmet, £900.
Yeah.
But that's everything inside me is like, don't message him. Do not message him. Rachel calls me eBay police because I sometimes have this compulsion. I've got to message that guy because that. That is, and so that's kind of leading me on to another story. Actually, this is just because I've reminded myself about it.
Right.
I do sometimes have this compulsion that if I see what I think is a bit of a jackass listing on eBay, I sometimes have a compulsion to message the seller.
Hey, what are you doing?
I can't help it. But this and and don't get me wrong, a lot of the time it's just dude, is this correct? Because that really doesn't seem like a $900 helmet, £900 helmet. But there was one, I don't know how I found it. But there was a guy on eBay selling an unopened bag of crisps from 1992, right? It was unopened, but they were 19, so they were like almost 30-year-old crisps, and I think they were called Frisps. I don't know if you remember them, Michael, from your UK time.
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
So they were obviously nearly 30 years old, but unopened, and he wanted £1,200 for this bag of crisps.
What?
Right? Okay. What I don't know what led him to believe that an unopened bag of crisps was worth £1,200, but so I couldn't help myself, so I messaged him, and I said, I was just curious to know if you've got any other flavors, because I'm missing a bag of ready salted Frisps from '92.
Right.
I'd really like it to finish my collection. If you can, if you can help me out, I'd appreciate it. And I signed it off, Mr. F. Risps. Now, bearing in mind, I signed him. He came back to me and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Are you willing to pay? What are you willing to pay for it?" I was like, "Oh, I'll pay up to £5,000 for it." And I said, because I've already got the other two, and I was messaging him, I've already got the other two flavors. So if I can get this last flavor, they're worth up. I've got, valued at Sotheby's. I can get it up to 5 million if I can get. And he was like, "Really? What's he telling me? That if I could?" I was like, yeah. And then I'm going to use the money, and I think I put something like, I'm going to use the money to fund finding a complete collection of bits of pizza crisps if I can. And this guy was buying it. And I believe I said, yeah, get in touch with Sotheby's. They're very, very particular about the corn snacks that they deal in, though. You need to really be careful. They've got an X-ray machine, so they know if your packet's been unopened and filled and then resealed. And he was all over it. And then I just got, about a week later, I got one message back off eBay from him, and it just said, "Jackass." That was about a week later.
You're the jackass, but he's the guy selling a packet of 30-year-old crisps for £1,500.
I can only assume he got in touch with an auction house. But yeah, so that was a bit naughty, but yeah.
Oh, see, okay.
It was. I might have got that story slightly worded differently, but I actually have the screenshots. I could send them to you just so you can see it.
I don't need receipts to believe.
Not right now, but I will do it just so you can see it at some point.
That would be fun.
That was a genuine story.
Now, I am ignorant on this point because I was back in the UK in 2019, but I was just back grabbing bags of Watsits every now and then. I wasn't like or Quavers. I wasn't actually looking. Are Frisps still around?
I don't think they are.
Oh, okay, so
I might be wrong. I don't think they are.
So it's added to the cachet of Frisps.
Yeah.
Like, remember Frisps? Like, this is the only way to still taste them.
But it was just one of them. And this is sometimes how I think. What do you suppose convinced the guy that an unopened bag of crisps that were almost 30 years old were worth that amount of money? In between the story, by the way, he upped the price while I was talking to him because I think I convinced him they were worth more.
I've seen guys online recently when I was doing that Force Ghosts figure review. I had to go look up images from the Lay's potato chips here that had the ad for the send away for the Obi-Wan ghost figure from back in the 90s, and I was bracing myself to find people selling the crisp bags for several $100s. I was bracing because I know people on the internet are just ridiculous. Fortunately, and maybe I just was in between idiots, but fortunately, everything I saw was fairly reasonable. Like some people wanted like $17 for the bag. I didn't buy it. I just needed an image, but it was like, okay, well, 17 is still a little ridiculous for an empty crisp bag from 1997, but at least it's 170, or 1700. I wonder if anybody, I'm sure there's somebody out there. I wonder if anybody's done a YouTube channel that's just about ridiculous eBay listings and riffing on them.
That is a good idea for a video at the very least, rather than even if it's not a channel. I'm wondering if I can somehow get that into my videos somewhere.
Oh, you should. You should. You know what we should do? We should test the waters with that. We should do it. We should do it.
I'm sure we could find
some
crazy
we could do a collaborative episode together where you go off to eBay UK and you collect up some entries for the week, and I go off to eBay America and I collect ridiculous entries for the week of just anything I can think of. And then we come together on a stream and we're like,
Check this out.
Yeah, Luke and Mike's ridiculous eBay listings, volume 1. And it's just like us like showing, like we don't know what each other's got. So it's like you show me a ridiculous listing, and then I'm like, no way. And they're like, yeah, and you got the screenshots. And then I'm like, okay, here's my listing. You wait for it. I got one better. Boom. I think that would be hilarious.
That would be good. Yeah, that would be good.
Oh, Dean says.
Oh yes, Dean has done those before. Yeah.
Oh well, then we're in good headspace then, which means we got to get Dean doing some of those again so that we can learn from the master.
Yes. Now he's said that. Yes, I have seen Dean do a couple of crazy prices. Yeah.
All right. For those of you that don't know, this is Dean from All Things 80s. Hence, it's called All Things 80s, and that is a great YouTube channel. So yeah. Well, sir, I know that it's almost 10 o'clock where you are in the evening.
Yes.
And I would like to give you some time to decompress and, you know, do what you need to do. Maybe have some frisps that are 30 years old.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. But in the meantime, between now and our next video together at some point when we get together with Dean and do the ridiculous eBay listings power hour,
that would be good.
That would be really funny. He just said here, I think the best one was $8,000 for half a dozen beater Star Wars figures.
Wow.
Yeah. Tell everybody where they can find you. And I highly recommend everybody, if you love Star Wars and you love toys in general, please consider checking out Reynolds Reviews and subscribing. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, obviously you can find me on YouTube, but I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under the same title. But yeah, obviously it'd be great to have anybody stop by. It'd be wonderful to have you at the channel. But yeah, stop by. It'd be fantastic to have you.
Awesome. Well, Luke, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Absolute pleasure.
As I almost belch in the final moments of the. Thank you so much for doing this. To everybody in the chat, thank you for making it a great chat. It's been a great time talking with Luke and getting to know you even better than I already do. And we will be together again on video, hopefully with a gem of a Scottish man that happens to live in the Eastern United States. So, all right, everybody have a great night. And
thank you, everyone.
See y'all.